Okay, listen to this. The road ahead is very dangerous. People often see things on the cot that shouldn't be seen. Just let that sink in for a second. Imagine hearing those exact words from a local right as you're about to ride your motorcycle into a pitch black, isolated mountain pass. I mean, it literally sends a shiver down your spine, doesn't it?
Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the terrifying truth of Kashedi Ghat. We're going to break down an allegedly true, completely horrifying incident that happened on a notorious stretch of road in India. We'll dive into the psychology, the local folklore, and that undeniable terror of being totally trapped in the dark.
All right, let's set the stage with section 1. The terrifying journey begins, or the first night of monsoon. So let's get into the dynamic between our two travelers here, because it really sets up the whole ordeal. Picture this. It's the end of May, the very first monsoon rain is coming down, and this impromptu weekend road trip is born. But right off the bat, we've got a massive clash of personalities. You've got Akash, who is just brimming with overconfidence. He's absolutely insisting that his motorcycle's headlight is gonna, pierce the darkness. And then you have his buddy Pankaj. Pankaj is hesitant, and honestly, for good reason. He's actively warning Akash that even the locals absolutely refuse to travel Kashedi Ghat alone after 2 a.m. But, as you can probably guess, Akash's stubbornness completely overrides Pankaj's perfectly logical fears. So, the decision is made. They hit the road, taking the Pune to Konkan route right at 11 p.m., and the source notes this crazy instant shift in the environment. The second they cross the city limits and plunge into the winding roads of the Ghats, all those comforting city lights just vanish. It is pitch black, it's freezing cold from that fresh monsoon rain, and the scenery instantly transforms into this heavy, pure silence. Just endless stretches of these dark, towering trees closing in. Moving right along to section 2, Shakva, a frightening warning, and the tea vendor's truth. By this point, the cold is really biting, and they're getting tired, so they pull over at a dim little tea stall. It's basically the only beacon of light from miles around. But here is where the atmosphere gets really heavy. The source describes how the old tea vendor reacts the moment they mention they're heading into Kashedi Ghats. His hands literally freeze. He looks at these guys and drops this incredibly dire warning. He says, "You are city kids. You might think of this as superstition, but let me tell you, the road ahead is very dangerous." And he isn't talking about potholes or sharp turns here. He is talking about something else entirely. Now, what's super fascinating here is the local folklore he introduces. The tea vendor warns them about something called a chakva. So according to the source material, a chakva is essentially this ghostly illusion, a supernatural maze that forms specifically in the thick mist of the very first monsoon rain. The legend goes that it traps travelers in this endless loop on the exact same stretch of road, literally forcing them to drive in circles for hours until their fuel completely runs out. It's a psychological trap just as much as a physical one. Which brings us to section 3, the maze of Kashedi Ghat, the circle of death. Of course, Akash just brushes off the warning as an old man's superstition, and they keep riding. But let's walk through this chilling timeline together. They leave Pune at 11 p.m. By 2:30 a.m., the absolute dead of night, they enter the darkest stretch of Kashedi Ghat. The isolation and that bone-chilling cold are severe. It's actually so hypnotic that Akash, who's driving, starts nodding off at the handlebars, nearly crashing the bike. And then at 4:30 a.m., this utterly terrifying realization finally hits them. But wait, right before that realization, how are they even trying to stay awake? Well, our source points out that Pankaj actually forces Akash to keep talking, just to keep his brain active. And what do they end up talking about? Akash's ex-girlfriend, Ria, and all their old arguments. It's such a relatable, completely mundane conversation, right? Just a human shield against the creeping sleep. Yet, that everyday banter contrasts so deeply and unsettlingly with the supernatural threat that is literally lurking just outside the beam of their headlight. So, while they're chatting away, the horrifying truth dawns on Pankaj. The undeniable facts just start piling up. First, they've been riding for nearly 2 hours since the tea stall. But this specific patch of Kashedi Ghat, it normally takes like 15 to 20 minutes to cross. Then, Pankaj spots a broken banyan tree by the side of the road. But hold on, they passed that exact same tree half an hour ago. And he knows for a fact it's the same tree because there's a very specific red cloth tied right to its trunk. And, to top the whole thing off, the motorcycle's fuel tank, which was completely full, is inexplicably half empty. The panic really sets in now. They aren't moving forward at all. They are caught in the chakwa, looping endlessly on what looks like a perfectly straight road. Let's move into section 4, the terrifying truth, where there is no way to escape. This is where the psychological trap turns into a very physical nightmare. Notice how rapidly their modern tech just totally fails them. First, that heavy engine abruptly and inexplicably dies. The headlight completely cuts out, plunging them into absolute darkness. Second, when Akash desperately tries to kickstart it, the pedal is completely free, meaning there is zero compression. The engine is just magically dead. Third, as they're standing there in the pitch black, these strange, heavy rustling sounds start creeping out from the dense forest, almost like something invisible is actively circling them. So completely terrified, they execute step 4. They abandon the heavy bike and start walking blindly into the night, armed with nothing but the incredibly weak flashlights on their mobile phones. And then the geography itself seems to betray them. The source describes this moment of pure geographical horror. They are walking on a solid asphalt highway, but suddenly, the road beneath their feet simply vanishes. Just gone. It is instantly replaced by thick, wild, thorny bushes. It's literally as if the highway just evaporated, dropping them squarely into the untamed heart of the jungle. They point their trembling phone flashlights toward those bushes. And this leads us to the ultimate question. What was finally behind those bushes, waiting for them in that stark white light? Let's take a breath. Okay, so the source details a truly horrifying visual here. Squatting right there on the wet mud is an entity. It looks like an old woman with messy, scattered white hair, but it's her face that completely breaks their sanity. Her eyes are glowing brightly, exactly like a cat's in the flashlight beam, locked directly onto them. And across her face is this wide, unnatural, totally inhuman smile. The sight is so intensely traumatizing, so far beyond any logical explanation, that both Akash and Pankaj's minds simply shut down to protect themselves. They pass out cold, collapsing right there in the thorny bushes from sheer terror. Which brings us to our final section, the scary ending and proof, and the morning dawn. The nightmare ends just as abruptly as it began. When the very first rays of the morning sun finally hit the mountains, the spell completely breaks. Akash and Pankaj wake up. But get this, they aren't in a thorny jungle anymore. They are lying perfectly safe on the side of the asphalt road. There are no bushes anywhere in sight, and the absolute most chilling detail of all, Akash walks over to his motorcycle, the exact same one that was completely dead hours ago, and it roars to life on the very first kick, almost as if the machine itself is desperate to flee the mountain. And this brilliantly illustrates the severe, permanent toll this single night took on these two guys. Just look at the aftermath here. Akash, the overconfident writer, he gives up night riding forever. He is completely changed. Pankaj fares even worse, honestly. He falls severely ill with a high fever, entirely loses his lively, talkative spark, and remains perpetually quiet and withdrawn. It's like a piece of them was left behind on that ghat. Now, to wrap up our analysis of the source material, we really have to look at its final claims. The source explicitly asserts that this isn't just folklore, but a true event. Furthermore, it claims that this phenomenon is backed up by recent video reels circulating online, showing modern travelers experiencing this exact same 2-hour loop and catching glimpses of a smiling entity. Now, while we are just impartially presenting what the source claims here, it definitely adds a fascinating, very modern layer to this ancient regional legend. Which leaves us with one final, very lingering thought. Based on everything we've just unpacked from this chilling narrative, would you dare to pass through Kashedi Ghat on a monsoon night? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating, terrifying piece of folklore with me today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and maybe keep an eye on your fuel gauge.